have the pleasure of interviewing Xavier Williams, president at AT&T. He's held roles across finance, product management, strategy, sales, human resources, global operations, and customer service. But now he's the head of AT&T's global public sector and wholesale solutions business. Thank you so much for your time today, Xavier.
Oh, thank you.
Please tell us your backstory.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this inspiring effort that you have going, Jamie. I really applaud what you're trying to do. My backstory, I'm a young man who grew up in the inner city. I grew up in Washington, D.C., have had the opportunity to work at AT&T for 28 years now. Came here in an interesting manner, coming out of D.C., I actually played high school basketball, was recruited to play basketball at a school named Edinburgh in Northwest Pennsylvania. My mother loved the school because they offered me both an academic and an athletic scholarship. So was able to go to school both for books and ball. So she was happy about that. The biggest thing I would say about the opportunity I had there, I know I went there as a boy and I know I left the man. So I feel real good about the experience I had there. From there, I went directly to get my MBA. Wasn't ready to work. Went into the University of Pittsburgh, the Katz School of Business. It's an 11-month MBA program when I was there. So it was quite interesting. I was a freshly minted MBA at 22 years old. It sounds very sexy, but when you don't have any job experience at 22 years old with a master's degree, you're either overqualified for entry-level jobs or underqualified for mid-level management type roles. So I came to AT&T. They gave me an opportunity. And as I mentioned, 28 years later, I'm still here.
All right. I like that. Thank you. Now, can you share the funniest or most interesting story that happened to you since you took on your leadership role at AT&T?
Sure. There are a few. The one I'll point out, I had taken over I'll call it an underperforming organization. It was a sales organization, and the running joke was there are 30 sales branches in the country. We were ranked number 34. So that was the situation that I walked into. Mm-hmm. A week into the job, one of my direct reports walks into the room and she starts to describe a vacation that she's going to take, that her and her family have been saving up to go visit the Greek Isles, and how this is going to be such a special trip for the family and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, is she just being nice? Is she sharing? And when she finishes her explanation of her vacation, I'm like, well, that's great. And Jamie, one thing, let me make this clear. It's October. She's talking about a trip for spring break. And I'm like, why is she sharing this with me? And after she finishes, it was really exciting. So I was like, that's great. Then there was a pregnant pause, and I'm looking at her, she's looking at me. And finally she says, well, can I go? And I said, well, can you? I don't know if you can go or not. I'm like, do you want me to pay for it? Well, what I subsequently found out was my predecessor had I'll call it an unwritten policy related to anybody who was taking vacation. They had to have it approved 6 months in advance. Mm. And I immediately grabbed all of the direct reports and said, okay, tell me some of these other policies that we have in place. And there were a lot of very interesting things that weren't official policies. And we changed a lot very quickly. And it taught me a very important lesson about culture and how the culture you set in the organization is tantamount to results. And I'm happy to say at that time, within a year to 18 months, that underperforming organization, we were in the top 10 in the country. And a lot of it had to do with just dealing and breaking down cultural mores and things like that. And other lesson I learned, simple lesson, you got to trust your people. Yeah. You trust them to take care of clients. So you got to trust them to manage their time and manage things accordingly. So very interesting story from my vantage point about the Greek Isles.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, definitely. Thank you for that story. Thank you. And now, what do you think makes your company stand out?
Oh, our people. Our people are absolutely phenomenal. Um, we're a company that is rooted in the community. Not only do we work in the community, we live in the community. I've seen people, especially in times of disaster, sacrifice their family things to make sure that they're taking care of clients, be it storms, be it literally disasters, be it earthquakes. One of the first things from an infrastructure standpoint that you need to get reestablished is communications. And I've watched day in and day out our people with, the heart of a lion go in, fix things, sacrifice, and make sure that other folks are being cared for. So AT&T is always and always will be known for its people. It's a company with a soul, and a lot of it, more than basically everything, has to do with the people that work here.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Now, are you working on any new or exciting projects right now?
Oh, absolutely. Supporting the public sector space is always interesting. We serve public servants. We're trying to help them with advanced IT solutions to make their jobs better. One of the really exciting things that we have been working with the federal government on is called FirstNet. This time last year, we won a deal through the Department of Commerce that allows us to build the first responder network to support first responders across the country. This is rooted going back to 9/11, believe it or not, where what we are now doing is making sure that police can talk to firemen, firemen can talk to other first responders, and it's just creating a common network across the nation that allows us to ensure that communications are seamless, they flow better, and people can do their job whenever a disaster hits.
Yeah.
Another big one is for the state of Texas. We've just signed a contract where we're helping to provide cybersecurity support, not only to the state, but to cities, municipalities, counties across Texas. The threat around security is huge, and anything that we could do to help in that area is important. Another one is it's called EIS. Think of Enterprise Infrastructure Solutions for the federal government through the GSA, the General Services Administration. This is the key contract vehicles that allow federal governments to modernize our their IT solutions. So we're one of 9 participants on that contract vehicle. So we're doing a lot of exciting things that we feel really good about as a company.
No, that's really great. That's really great. And now, what advice would you give to other leaders to help their employees to thrive?
Oh, wow. Empower your people, respect your people. Culture is important. Something that I had learned earlier in life around work, your customer experience will never exceed the employee experience. That is very important in terms of if you don't take care of your people, they're not going to take care of customers. So just trying to make sure you empower people and take care of them. One of the things we do as a company, we actually track this. We call it ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score, to try to make sure that from a culture standpoint, we're investing in our people and trying to make it better for them so they can make it better for clients.
All right. And, just to kind of like add to it, as far as the culture, have you had any employees that came to you and said, wow, coming to AT&T, this is something that's different. This is a different culture. Have you ever had that experience?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of we have for lack of a better term, it's a running joke, but people come here because of the name. They stay here because of the people. They fall in love with the people. They fall in love with the work that they do. It's obviously a brand name that people know about, but once they come here, it's very much a familiar atmosphere, family atmosphere. where people can thrive and grow as individuals. That's always important.
I like that. I like that. And now, is there a person that helped you to be successful, and how grateful are you to this person?
Oh, well, there are a lot. So first and foremost, there are a lot. But I mean, for me, it always goes back to my parents. My father, who passed last October, was an entrepreneur. My mother is an educator in the DC public schools. I had a pretty good balance of I had somebody who was always encouraging me to take risks, the entrepreneur. Then I had somebody else who was always encouraging me to make sure you go to school, make sure that you have structure. So I had a pretty good balance at home. And there was never a day that they told me there wasn't anything I could not achieve as an individual. So my parents are always the folks that I always view as whatever success I have in life, I view it because of them.
No, definitely. And also, being a Black man and being in the position that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
Having, your parents being there with you, just overall, how would you talk to other, young men and women out there, that are Black, and they may not have their parents, with them, how would you encourage, those folks?
Well, I mean, look, find people who are going to have your back and are going to encourage you. There's always a lot of folks who are going to be your mentors, your sponsors, things of that nature. I remember someone very earlier in my career, when I was working in the Washington, D.C. area, I would stop by a shoe shine guy, and he would, $3 to $5, he signed your shoes and all those different types of things. One day he said something to me that really resonated with me. He said, "Man, we look good today." And it was that was the moment that it said, this isn't about me. It's about the community. So don't always think it's the people that are higher up than you and all that different type of stuff that are the people that have your back. It's the community that's always going to have your back and be encouraging you to be successful.
All right. And how have you used your success to bring goodness to the world?
Well, one, first, I hope I am bringing goodness to the world. So I appreciate you saying that. But it's important for me to always try to pay it forward. I mentioned earlier, I went to a school named Edinburgh. My wife and I have been able to establish a business academy there during the summer where kids from the inner city get to come and learn about college early on in life, so they know that's an option for them. My wife and I we started a church 8 years ago. Love Ministries in the Dallas, Texas area is very important to us because it's our opportunity to bring folks and give folks a different way of looking at life and understanding that from a foundational standpoint, there are things that they can do to build a quality of life that is sustainable for many, many years. So that's been important to us. And just trying to do a lot in the community. I've always tried to mentor younger folks and do things of that nature.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, mentoring the younger generation, especially in the Black community, it's really, really important. So for you to pay that forward, I definitely appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
And also, can you share the top 5 lessons that you've learned from being a Black man in tech?
Okay, 5. Ooh, that's deep. 5 of them. So let me. I'll start with the African proverb. So 1, until the lion learns to write, the hunter will always be glorified in the story. We have to learn to tell our own story. I think that's very important, and this is why I compliment what you're doing. There are a lot of very successful African-American males, Black males out there in tech and in other areas that are doing a lot of positive things. And if we don't go out and tell our story, it'll never be told. So, I mean, first and foremost is making sure we accept that we have a story to tell and that we go out and tell it. So said differently, we have a lot of good stories. We need to become good storytellers. So I think that's very important. So that's 1. Yeah. Secondly, don't be scared to be great. I think a lot of times that there are folks that will assume that we are satisfied being part of corporate America instead of running corporate America. You have to have individuals who are willing to step up and do great things. All of us have it in us. It's not having that fear of failure, because you can only be great if you're willing to fail. So making sure that you're not scared to be great is another lesson that I've learned. Another one for me is really built on you can't let people define who you are. You can't, whatever is done to you, you can't always be accepting of it. If someone has low expectations of you, you have to have it within yourself to say, no, I'm not going to accept that, and raise the bar. So how do you make sure that you're not willing to accept what other people think of you? You have to make sure that you define your own reality and be successful in that area. What other ones would I like to share? That's a good one. There comes a point where you have to understand whether you're a Black executive or an executive who is Black. I remember there was a show, you're a little younger than me. I'm sure you're familiar with the show, Law and Order.
Yes.
The guy, when the original came out, there was he was the assistant district attorney. And on the show, his name was Robinette. And in one of the shows, the question was, are you a Black lawyer or are you a lawyer who's Black? And over the years, I struggled with, are you a Black executive or are you an executive who's Black? And the answer is yes, you're both. Because there are going to be times where you need to be the voice in the room that, hey, I'm not an executive, I'm a Black man. And you need to express and share things with people that they might not be, privy to. It's not that they're being insensitive. They need to understand certain things where, I'll joke with folks, I've never failed a red face test. So when people say, have you passed a red face test? Yep, I'm going to pass it all the time. So, and people don't mean any harm in saying it. It's just some cultural mores. So it's important that you understand both of those aspects of your career and make sure that you're being, you have to have conviction and you have to have confidence to make sure that you could represent both sides of the coin from that vantage point. The last one I would talk about is, Ralph Ellison has a statement in one of his books is, play the game, but don't believe it. So a lot of times in a corporate environment, there are going to be politics that are involved. You got to play and understand what's going on from a cultural standpoint, from a political standpoint, and be able to play the game, but don't believe in it. I mean, one of the things that I tell my children, I tell myself, I walk into a situation with my integrity, I'm going to walk out of the situation with my integrity. So understand the stakes that are in play, but you do got to play the game. Yeah. So that was hard. 5 questions. That was very hard.
No, but you did it. But those were, 5 great lessons, definitely. And, just to kind of like add a question to that.
Yeah.
You're a Black executive. You're in a huge organization. With other, Black, boys and girls that are out there, they're looking at you, they're watching this. What would you tell them? There's not a lot, of people that are like you, that are Black executives out there. And they're looking at the world and they're saying, okay, yes, I see 1 or 2, but can I really do it? So what advice would you give them?
Again, don't be scared to be great. You could do everything I'm doing and better. And in fact, if you don't do better than me, then I've actually failed you, because there are folks who have paved the way for me. I need to pave the way for the next generation. And, don't ever, that old adage about windows and mirrors, or what you're talking about. I want to be a window and a mirror for both folks where they see themselves, but when they look out the window, I want them to see as far as the eye can imagine more than anything. We AT&T recently AT&T recently sponsored the Essence Festival, and one of the themes that we had was Dream in Black. And the idea around it was your dreams could be as big as they want to be. As Black individuals, as people of color, or whatever you want to call it, live your dream and go for it is the biggest thing I would tell any young person.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And now, what's your favorite life lesson quote?
So for me, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. So it's important to make sure that you know who you are and what you're doing. Another one is, it's a Cherokee saying, it's a long story, so I'll paraphrase. There are two individuals in you. There's a good wolf, there's a bad wolf. The one that you feed is the one that you become, basically. So you can control your own narrative by what you feed into yourself, and the manner in which you approach life is the way that I would think about it.
Love that. I love that. And now, lastly, who would you love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, and why?
So I, since college, I don't know if you pledged a fraternity, I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi. One of the more prominent Kappas is a guy by the name of John Thompson. Typically, people think of John Thompson, the basketball coach, but there is if you're in tech, John W. Thompson was a IBM executive, later went on to run Symantec, and among other things nowadays is the chairman of Microsoft. So I've always admired and followed his career, and knew that there was somebody I could emulate that came before me. So never had the pleasure of meeting him. So one day I'm sure I will, but that would be the individual that I would say I would love to have breakfast or lunch with one day.
All right, sounds good. And do you have any last words for us?
No, again, I just thank you for creating this platform. What you're doing is phenomenal. And if I could ever be of any assistance to you, please let me know.
Oh, no. Thank you so much. Xavier, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks.
All right.